Today, I will explain some of Sigmund Freud's deep and thought-provoking quotes in a simple way. If you're ready, let's get started. Normality, like a normal ego, is an ideal fiction. To explain this, first imagine a person who appears perfectly balanced from the outside. Stable job, healthy relationships, calm demeanor. To anyone watching, this person would be called normal. Yet, the same person might have a secret, repetitive habit such as washing their hands exactly 3 times to feel safe, which is actually a neurotic remnant, or they might carry intense, unexpressed anger toward a colleague. Freud argues that even though this person looks normal on the surface, their inner mind is just as full of conflicts and peculiarities as anyone else's. In this view, the perfectly normal person is only a mask. In reality, every individual is only averagely normal. So, what does the ego mentioned in the quote represent? According to Freud, the ego is, in a sense, the individual themselves. Freud maintains that the boundary between normal and abnormal is never clearly drawn. He observed that every normal person's ego actually approaches the psychotic ego in certain parts or to a certain degree. Therefore, normality is not a separate state of being, it is simply a point on a spectrum where inner conflicts are better managed. By calling the normal ego an ideal fiction, Freud suggests that it is a theoretical construct and not a reality any human being can fully achieve. Ultimately, he says that instead of living our own lives, we are lived by unknown and uncontrollable forces in the unconscious, meaning what we call normal is only a superficial appearance.
The ego is not master in its own house. Imagine your mind as a house and your unconscious as the basement of that house. Remember when I said earlier that the ego is us, the ego is everyone? Now picture yourself as the owner of this big house, the boss who decides when to eat, where to sit, and how to decorate. That's more or less what the ego is. But soon you discover that there are uninvited guests living in the dark basement, your unconscious. These are guests who, when you're not looking, move your furniture and lock your doors. No matter how hard you try to stay in control, these secret roommates influence your behavior and emotions without your permission. Eventually, you realize that even though it's your house, you're not really the one running the show. According to Freud, the psyche is divided into 3 parts. The first is the id. You can think of the id as our instincts. Remember when I talked about things that are bad, harmful, or forbidden? The id is what triggers those instincts. The second part is the superego. You can think of it as the exact opposite of the id. While the id pushes you toward those forbidden things, the superego stands ready to stop you. It's like the id's enemy. And the ego, that is, you, stands right in the middle of the id and superego, mediating between them and turning thoughts into actions. What about the unconscious? We can sense the demands of the id and the strict rules of the superego, so we can twist and turn them and act accordingly. But the same is not true for the unconscious. We don't control it, it controls us. That's why the ego, that is, we ourselves, are not master even in our own house. According to Freud, the unconscious is the true psychic reality, and since its depths remain largely unknown to us, the ego mostly functions as a mediator that disguises unconscious drives as rational choices. In other words, Freud argues that instead of living our own lives, we are lived by unknown and uncontrollable forces.
Inanimate things existed before living ones. To explain this simply, imagine a perfectly flat, motionless piece of paper lying on a table. This represents the inanimate or lifeless state. Now imagine picking up that paper and crumpling it into a ball. The paper now represents life, full of tension and energy. According to Freud, the crumpled paper doesn't want to stay that way. It has an inner pressure to unfold and return to its original flat, quiet state. Because the paper was flat before it was crumbled, its ultimate purpose is to return to that original, flat, silent condition. Freud believes all living beings are merely crumpled matter, and that every creature carries an underlying physical compulsion to return to the quietness that existed before life. This quote is one of the cornerstones of Freud's death drive, Thanatos theory. Freud suggests that all matter originally existed in organic or lifeless state, and life emerged later as a kind of disturbance or energy imbalance. Because instincts are fundamentally conservative, they always want to restore a previous state. Every living cell carries a deep physical urge to return to its original spread-out inanimate condition. It is always possible to bind together a considerable number of people in love, so long as there are other people left over to receive manifestations of their aggressiveness. Imagine a tight group of friends at school who never fight with each other and always support one another. Yet the secret to their strong bond is that they spend much of their time mocking or gossiping about another group of students. Because they direct all their bad energy outward, they don't feel aggression toward each other. This keeps their own group more loving and united. This statement reflects Freud's theory that civilization is in constant conflict between eros, the life instinct that brings people together, and thanatos, the death instinct expressed as aggression. Freud argues that aggressiveness is an innate instinctual tendency in humans and the greatest obstacle to cultural unity. In order to maintain social order within a group, individuals must find a way to discharge their inner aggression without destroying their own members. That's why the group achieves inner peace through a psychological trade-off. They direct their aggressive impulses outward toward an other or a stranger, allowing the in-group members to remain lovingly connected. Freud notes that this mechanism is frequently used by political and religious systems to create group belonging through shared hostility toward a common enemy.
The voice of the intellect is a soft one, but it does not rest until it has gained a hearing. Imagine a person who is extremely angry during a heated argument. Their primitive impulses, the id, scream at them to yell, throw things, or say incredibly hurtful words. That voice is loud, violent, and immediate. In the background, however, there is a small, quiet thought suggesting that losing control will only make things worse, and that calm conversation is the only way to solve the problem. At first, the loud yelling drowns out this quiet thought. But when the shouting stops and the person sits in silence, that soft voice of reason is still there, repeating the truth. It doesn't go away just because it's ignored. It keeps going until the person finally listens and realizes they were wrong. This statement contains one of the rare glimpses of hope Freud offers about the future of humanity. Having spent most of his life examining the wild instincts and irrational storms in the depths of the unconscious, here Freud opens a rare door to optimism by arguing that the quiet but persistent voice of reason will eventually be heard and prevail.
The aim of all life is death. Imagine a wind-up toy that's been fully wound up. Inside it, there's an incredible buildup of tension and energy. As soon as you place it on the ground, it starts moving, jumping, spinning, and hopping around wildly. From the outside, it looks like the toy is enjoying all this frantic activity. But in reality, it's just trying to release that stored tension and return to its original state, complete stillness and immobility. According to Freud, the toy's true purpose isn't to keep moving forever, it's to expend all its energy until it finally stops. As Freud said in the previous quote, inanimate things existed before living ones. The mind, too, longs to return to that silent, tension-free beginning. Freud calls this drive thanatos, the death drive. As explained earlier, this drive is in constant conflict with eros, the life drive that seeks connection, reproduction, and bonding. According to this theory, even our self-preservation instincts aren't really aimed at living forever. They're there to protect the organism from accidental external deaths so that death can occur in its proper internal way without interference. In short, the life drives are actually guardians of death. The real goal is to reach complete peace and stillness through internal means without external disruption. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like and subscribe. Also, drop a comment below letting me know whose quotes you'd like me to cover next. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next video.